going on?
It is Darren Rose Radio, where we play the greatest hits of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, thanks for hanging out, DarrenRoseRadio.com is where you can find all the former podcasts, videos, social networks, all that stuff. I'm not going to talk much today because we have so much to talk about with today's guest. You could say he's radio and TV royalty, I think, at this point.
Well, I wish that translated to actual cash.
With an envious resume that includes Howard Stern and Jay Leno. John Melendez, you might know him more as Stuttering John.
Yep.
How are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
Thanks for coming out all the way from Calabasas.
Calabasas.
Did you have to show your passport when you crossed over the...
Exactly.
When you moved from New York, you went right to Calabasas, right?
Yeah. In fact, it's when I knew the Tonight Show thing was going, I remember I barely called in sick on the Stern Show, but I had to because I had to find a place. So I flew out.
And you had to do it on the sly?
Yeah, I did it on the sly. I flew out here, looked at houses, picked one that was being built in the Oaks of Calabasas, which is where the Justin Bieber is.
Kardashians.
Yeah, and all that stuff. So I picked the Oaks, and the house was like still, it wasn't even built yet. It was just like, so then I said, I'll take it. Flew back home, and then my wife was like, well, what color's the house? I go, what do you mean? It's just all sheetrock. She goes, you bought a house without even knowing what freaking color it's going to be? I'm like, yeah, I have no choice, So, but that's it. And then, now see, the Oaks, it has like a gate, I was telling you, and then the Justin Bieber and the Britney Spears, they are behind another gate.
Double gate.
Yeah, so it's like the really rich people, and then the poor, pseudo-rich live in the other area.
It's the maximum security celebrities.
But it's the most pompous place in the world. Just to give you an idea, when Jay was losing his job the first time, when Conan was taking over, and a woman from the Oaks in Calabasas goes up to my wife at a Subway sandwich shop and says, hey, so I see John might be, losing his job. Do you think you guys are going to... And, she drove around in like a crappy Toyota Sienna, for the kids,
Right.
And the woman said, so if John's, going to be losing his job, are you guys going to be moving? And my wife goes, well, yeah, we might have to. She goes, you know what? Quite honestly, your car never really matched the house. I swear to God.
Well, you brought it up, so let's jump right into that. You had to come out here while you were still on the slide because you got the offer from Leno.
I got the offer. What happens? I did the show on Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, which was with like Melissa Rivers and Bruce Jenner.
Yeah, what was the premise? It was like Big Brother with celebrities.
No, yeah, it was like Survivor with like B-list, or that I use that very really like C-list, celebrities.
Yeah.
And when we were all in Australia, we were in a rainforest. It rained us every day. All the celebrity types were all complaining, and I never complained. It was in my underwear. It was raining on me. I didn't care because I've been camping all my life, And the Tonight Show saw me on that. They booked me as a guest. I did the guest spot, and right when the segment was over, the executive producer had offered me a correspondence job. So I went and talked to Robin about it. And
with a dollar figure right there, like you saw the...
I just always wanted to be in TV. I majored in film and television at NYU, so I was doing it. And then, I talked to Robin because I didn't think Howard would ever let me. And
Robin Quivers,
and she said, just, set up a meeting with Howard. I tried through his assistant, and he went on the air and said, John, I don't want to meet with you about your career. I don't give a crap. So I said, well, now what should I do, Rob? She said, go and ask again. So I asked his assistant again. He again on the air, he said, John, I don't really care about you and your career. I don't care. So then I was like, well, what do I do now? And Robin was like, well, now you do what you have to do. So then
and you trusted her, like Robin wasn't going to go to Howard and say, hey,
yeah, I trusted her, and she was one of my closest friends on the show, and it was actually Artie and Robin, because when I finally got the offer to be the announcer, I actually confided with Artie. So Artie knew. One of my favorite moments with me and Artie is like...
Artie's great.
I love Artie, but the funniest thing is that, I had come up with this bet, whatever, me and him got to an argument on whether he could hit a softball girl's pitch, and it was like a $1,000 bet.
Oh, and this was on air?
Yeah, this was on air. Yeah. Artie knew I was leaving the show in February, and this was going to happen in March. So Artie knew that. So on the air, Artie's going, all right, we'll make this bet, but you got to put the money down now. Give the money down to Howard. And Howard's like, well, Artie, I don't understand the way to give the money now. And Artie goes, no, I want the money. I want to see it now. Because Artie knew that I'd be the hell out of there. Artie might not be able to collect.
Do you think that's what pissed Howard off the most? Is that everybody around him knew?
No, only Artie knew.
Well, but Robin had an idea too.
Robin only knew about the correspondent thing. She didn't know about the announcing because after Howard didn't want to talk to me, although now he said, in retrospect that he would have. I didn't know that. I didn't know that because on the air he had said things. I mean, there were times where he would put me down and say things like, I would amount to nothing, and and I'm nothing without him. And like if it's shtick, it's shtick. If it's not, but you still went home feeling like crap.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Everybody knows Howard Stern, knows the show, knows the cast. The show was really kind of that first original team show that really the timing was perfect for that career because of when it launched and how it got into the 90s and with the show on E, and that put a whole new spin on it. But I think a lot of people felt like maybe when the cameras were off, when the mics were off, you guys were all buddies. What was the vibe like after show? And
I hung out with Howard a lot. I mean, we went out to dinner a lot, me and my wife and him and Beth, but we never discussed like things like money or it was never really. We would just have fun and just goof around. So that was a great time. But when it came down to things like hey, if I get permission to do this, it wasn't then it wasn't like it wasn't as. Like, I don't want to say. I mean, it just was kind of separate than us going out and hanging out.
He was very possessive. Very.
Well, I'm not even going to say that because I was going to get in trouble with him. I want to say all I'm saying is that, like, when he said on the air that he didn't want to talk to me about my career, I believed him. Because I had gotten into trouble where where he thought that I was going to go get a book deal even if he told me not to. We've had arguments about my career, about me doing things, or about me on the road, and they put like Howard Stern's name on there. And there were times where he got really mad at you, and no, I didn't think that was shtick. I mean, I think he really got mad at you.
Yeah.
So when he said he didn't want to meet with me, I really believed him. So I mean, and that's and then people say, well, I should have told him before I signed the contract, but that to me is probably the dumbest thing you could do, because if I would have told him and maybe he got mad and went off on Jay or whatever happened, and then NBC got cold feet, then not only would Howard be mad at me that I went to NBC, that I was going to be at NBC, then I lose the job.
They might pull the offer, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was a tricky situation. I mean, I have no hard feelings. I mean, like I said, I've said things that have pissed him off in the past on Adam Carolla show where I was talking about about not getting paid and then I pissed him off most recently because people were saying that I was stealing ideas when using on the Tonight Show, and they're saying Howard was saying that something, and I said like don't drink the Kool-Aid, and that became a whole big thing, and now I'm banned or whatever, and it's like
banned. What do you mean banned? Like mentioning your name?
Well, no,
because it's been 10 years. I mean, when was that?
I don't think he talks about me. Like people say when someone tries to bring me up, he just changes stuff. He doesn't want to do it. Yeah. And I asked Gary if I would be on the show when I come out, and Gary said, well, I don't know what we would do with you or something like that.
Oh, geez. Are you still buddies with Gary or talk to anybody?
Yeah, everyone's but it's like it's fine. It's like I said, I'm gracious that Howard gave me my start. I have nothing bad. I mean, I was a big fan of Howard. I think he's the most talented guy on radio. I'm not kissing his ass. That's the truth. I was a fan. I listened to him all the time. I'm happy with all the stuff that we did there. But in the same breath, I'm not gonna lie, man. When people, there were times where he would lay into you and call me a loser and tell me I'm just the only thing I do that's good is stutter and and all that stuff. I mean, it hurts somebody.
And those were behind the scenes meetings. Those were live on air.
Yeah, and I know this is like a wow thing that like if argues, I go wow whatever. But it's the truth. I'm sensitive and it would hurt. And I would tell my I would tell my wife when I was like, I gotta get out of here. I just can't take hearing it. I mean, it just was nonstop. And
Did you feel like a gimmick? Did you feel like
no, I didn't feel like a gimmick. Just that I came from a father who was abusive, who beat the crap out of me and beat the crap out of my sisters in front of me when I was 5 years old, and so much so that my mom had to sleep in bed with with a knife with me one night, in case he went.
Was he a drinker?
No, just wasn't a drinker, which is why I decided to drink as much as I can. But so then just to hear that sometimes, and it gave you real low self-esteem. And I'm not saying, listen, I could have left, but then I did enjoy dishing it out and having fun, goofing back and making fun of guys. I'm not like, I don't mind goofing around. I don't mind how I goof on my stutter at all. I don't mind goofing on my hygiene. I don't mind him calling me a cheap bastard. I don't mind everything. The only thing that I like would hurt was when he would say I'm a loser and I'm no talent and I'm doing things behind his back, like things that were just where it just and I would feel horrible. So
and for those that don't work in radio or that don't know how radio works, it's like there is no real talking about changing jobs beforehand. It's like you're on the air one day and you're gone the next.
No, I gave my 2 weeks notice and I took it. I took it for a week, and I did that because of my loyalty, into the show. And I said, all right, I know I'm going to take it for a week. I know I'm going to get my ass handed to me. And I know Howard was really cool with it at first. He was like, hey, let's go celebrate. We actually went to Atlantic City after I told him, and had a great.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, everything was fine. And then now I'm trying to recall everything. I don't want to talk out of school, but I think Howard had dinner with Mel Karmazan, that was the owner of Infinity, whatever, and
CBS.
Yeah, CBS. And I guess he said, how dare John do that, to you and just leave without giving you a heads up. And I guess he got in Howard's ear, and then I guess Howard thought, maybe I did do the wrong thing, and then it got a little ugly.
Well, I think Howard knows too how to milk things on the air. I mean, the whole Clear Channel thing was something that he's nonstop talking. I mean, I stopped listening because so much of what was coming out of his mouth was Clear Channel bashing before he left for satellite. Yeah. And there is such thing as beating a dead horse. It's like, let's move on. Let's get over things. And
I don't know about Gary.
Who started Baba Booey? Was that?
No, Gary used to collect animation cells, and so Gary said that I guess he wanted to get a Baba Booey, but really the character was Baba Louie.
Oh, Baba Louie. That's how that started.
Yeah,
okay.
Gary screwed it up, but then was defiant about it. And I was like, no, it's not. It's Baba Louie. No, it's Baba Louie. And then it was finally, so then they called him out. You guys, I love to goof on Gary, and probably the reason was because, well, there's a lot of reasons, and and there was some that like Gary was, there were times where where Gary would do kind of like let's just say like backstabbing things and or irritating things and like say like. Remember, say that how he would think that he told you to do something, but he never did, and then he would blame you, and there are things like that. So, plus he was my boss, so he was my immediate boss. So of course you're gonna goof on your boss. So I took so much pleasure in goofing on Gary, but so that's what I'm saying. I'm guilty of goofing around too. I mean, but my big thing was his teeth and his lips and the way he ate shrimp.
Yeah, and like whenever you get a group of 4 or 5 guys in a room together, they're gonna bust each other's balls.
Which is why that's what I'm saying. 90% of the time I didn't care about it. The only time that it would get where it was like where Howard would like rail into you and and call you a loser and say that you're and those are the times where it hurt. And that's. But I mean again. That was not, that wasn't all the time. I mean, for the most part, it was us hanging out, having a great time.
I want to talk about the creative on the show. How much of that were you involved with? How much of because I know you had Fred as a writer, Jackie was a writer until Artie came in. Was it really a cumulative effort, or
when I started, I didn't write anything except for just being me with the interviews.
Right.
And like I wrote that song, that the theme song they play over and over again. That was my.
Which song was it?
I wrote this. See,
I'm sure I've heard it.
It's very all right. Now you gotta understand something. I'm 21, 22 years old. They used to have a song. Their theme song was done by the Double Zeros. And it was HOWARDSTERN. It was like it was Howard Stern and has a small penis, whatever it was. So I thought I'd write a song that I thought Howard would think was funny. Mm-hmm. And it was a racist song.
Okay.
But it was like here's a story about a Jew's success. It was just not politically correct.
Right. But you could get away with it in radio for a long time.
Well, mostly because of my naivete, and also because I thought that this would be what he would think was funny,
yeah.
which I was dead wrong.
Yeah.
But what he did think was funny, that I actually thought he would think this was funny. Yeah. So they 2 days on beating the crap out of me on the air, not beating me up badly. See, this was the kind of thing. This was the fun. See, I love the fun, Howard. Like I loved when Howard was goofing at me and and telling me to ask for like the club, just ask for Bubba $3,000 when I was playing Lamore, taking advantage of only paying $500, ask for Bubba $3,000 whatever. And his mom would call in and say, stop picking on John. And then Howard looked at me and went, see, now you got me in trouble with my mother. And it was like, I love that, Howard.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and that, I always felt like those are like the great times where you're a part of something that was
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the memories and highlights are countless.
Yeah.
Do you have any 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we're talking to your kids? What are going to be a few of those moments that you look back and go, that was just like a really special?
To me, the song was good because that day, like after and everything, Howard said, you're really good on the air, and then like immediately, then I started doing the interviews, and that was where it became like I couldn't imagine. Like I would be on the LA double R, which is like the trains. I was going home to Long Island, and some guy was listening to me talking. Unfortunately, I saw myself, but I was talking, and then the guy was like, "You started John?" Like they knew me just from my voice.
Yeah.
And then when the Channel 9 show hit,
what was that?
Okay, so that's when we first went on TV. It was like it was
it was local first.
Well, it was national, but it was syndicated.
Okay, because I wasn't out here yet. Howard Stern didn't get to the West Coast.
No, I think it wasn't out here. Yeah, it was like 2:30 in the morning or something.
Right.
But I do know that we beat SNL. And I remember the first show. I was up in my room at my mom's house, and we were all watching. It was my first interviews, and I think it was where Alison Steele, the old disc jockey, I was asking her, did she still use tampons or does she have wooden teeth or whatever. But at one point, I went into such a stutter, I hopped a loogie on her cheek. And and then I had to do Welcome Mondale, and I just remember like seeing myself, and it was such a funny thing. And I made it. I'm on TV.
Did you get nervous doing that stuff?
Hell yeah, that's why I started so much.
Yeah, because I remember like when I first started listening to Stern, which was probably 92. It was like probably later on because it didn't get syndicated to Seattle until later on. I was like, this guy stuttered. He doesn't stutter.
I mean that's
because you had gotten better. I want to talk more about your stuttering, but you've corrected a lot of it.
Well, the truth is, like when I was doing stand-up, people would boo me sometimes because I didn't stutter.
Like, what's the way?
Like, hey, we pay for you to stutter. But the truth is that I always stuttered. In fact, when I first did stand-up, it was actually the second time I did it on mic once. But then I took my wife and I had a 5-minute thing at the New York Comedy Club, and I went on stage and I stuttered through the whole 5 minutes. I was like 2 jokes out.
So it's based on nerves and anxiety a little bit.
Yeah, and then thank God for Al Martin, the owner of the club, because he said, John, we've been on the stage now in 10 minutes. I want you to go up there and do the same thing again. And I went up there without time to be scared, and I didn't stutter, and I got laughs, and then I was hooked. And that's I wanted to be stand-up when I was 22.
Yeah.
But because of such fear of stuttering every joke, I didn't. So I didn't really start doing stand-up until I was like 35.
Yeah. But were you writing? So I want to go back to the question about writing. Early on, obviously, you had different
things. Early on, I mean, it was just me doing interviews. I mean, I would throw in my own little improv sometimes. But then we started to write. I remember the first time I actually started to write for him was when I had interviewed on the Channel 9 show the Underdog Lady. Remember her? The Underdog Lady was this crazy lady who thought she was Underdog. You remember the cartoon Underdog?
Yeah.
Whatever. It's dated, but Susan Mulrooney was her name.
Okay.
But I can't believe I remember that. But anyway, on the Channel 9 show, I did an interview with her, and like I used to do the interviews with celebrities after they leave, so I did an interview.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then the next morning, Monday morning, when I let Howard in, he said, "John, you did a great job with the Underdog Lady. I loved it." So when they had the Underdog Lady on Hollywood Squares or whatever, he asked me to come into the writers' room with Jackie and Fred and write questions for her. And that was the first time, and it was so great. I felt so happy that I
You're part of
be
that.
included. And then they started. I was able to write on a computer, and then they had this thing called Lotus Notes, where I was able to submit stuff and get stuff on. And then
Submit, what do you mean by that?
well, I was
like during the show.
No, that was it started out. I was first just submitting like song parodies and things like that, or ideas for guests and homeless game questions.
Okay,
and all
yeah.
that. And then finally, when I did the phones, I had a computer, and I used to write jokes to him on top during the show. So he had a computer.
The phone screening room. You were in the phone screening room.
Well, yeah. So he had a computer. So if I had a line or a joke, I would put it on top.
Okay.
And Howard said that a lot of times he would do it.
Yeah.
And I would save all those. And I remember I would have them in a crate. When I went to Tom Chiasano, I had to ask for a raise. I would put them on his thing. And go, not only am I there, I'm also writing jokes for Howard, but it's still about time to never pay me.
How long did it take you to get on salary?
About 2 years.
That's not too bad. I mean, considering that you were there,
That's not too bad.
I mean, it wasn't like you were there for 5 or 10 years.
Well, let's just I mean, and again, and I mean this even though
'Cause you were intern
I'm not
originally.
blaming Howard for this.
No, I know.
This is not Howard's fault.
Right.
They had interns. Interns work for free. That's the
way it goes, yeah.
I invested in myself and invested in Howard that he was going to be bigger and I would eventually get hired.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I worked for about a year or two for free, but I was $10,000 in debt with my parents, so I can pay for the train and pay for everything. But eventually, when the Channel 9 show happened, I started to get paid, and then but my first salary on radio, I swear to God, and you're on radio, you've been on radio.
Yeah.
Take a guess what my first yearly salary was.
I'm trying to think.
This is 3 years in.
Well, this is 90.
This is 90. Yeah, exactly.
So 90.
91.
Because my first radio gig was 98, and I was about 24,000. So I would say in the teens.
$10,000.
$10,000.
So I made $10,000, and then we got added to like 10 networks. Mel Karmazin was nice enough to double my salary.
20, yeah.
So then I made 20, and then it went up in like 3% increments for about 5-10 years. And then
And you were probably working 10-hour days, right? I mean, you were getting in there at 4 a.m.
Well, no, because in the beginning I would get up at 3:20 in Long Island, get on the 357 train out of Massapequa, get to New York around 5, and I would let Howard in around 5:30, and then be there till like noon, and then I would go back to NYU because I was still going to college.
When going back to the writers, Fred and Jackie putting together scripts and bits and that kind of thing, did that happen before the show? Would those guys get together and look at yesterday's news, or was it
No,
after?
they would write like if they were doing a parody or a fart man thing. They would write, like Jackie and Fred would go into Howard's office, and they would come up with the bits, and they would write the bits in there. And I remember because then Jackie would send me down to get him 3 hot dogs and one of those filthy Yiddo sandwiches, all from the hot dog stand with all the sauce on it.
Yeah.
Jackie would be drenched in sauce while just eating it, and a Diet Coke.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to get something healthy in there. Yeah.
But that, and I remember, so they would write all those, like, all those things that they did, like the Woodstock, minute with Billy West, and then Billy West would go in there and he would write with them.
Was a lot of it on the fly, though, too? Like mid-show?
Well, yeah,
That's probably all had your...
Jackie and Fred would write. So I remember they had like a little tray in front of Howard. So Fred would hand the joke to Jackie, and Jackie would put it in front of Howard, or Jackie would write the joke, and then he would put it in front of Howard. You always knew it was a Jackie joke because he would laugh the hardest. And but yeah, so they would write. Those are the only 2 guys, and then of course Howard.
Yeah.
And then like eventually, then we were all allowed to write. And the interns were allowed to write, and Benji came and he was allowed to write. And he was writing for him. It became really cool because it became more creative, where you could actually write things and get it on, and that was great. And that was a lot of fun.
How did that contrast to your writing with Jay Leno Show?
I don't know, because I always say going from Howard Stern to Jay Leno is like going from video to Disney. You know what I mean?
Yeah. From YouTube to IMAX.
Yeah, it's a different world, but it did help because and plus stand up helped because I started learning how to construct a joke.
Sure.
Like not like it was so I remember one of the first jokes I wrote for Howard that I put up on the computer was I'm talking about Baba Booey in reference to Steve. I said Gary was the only kid who's tooth fairy shut up with the wheelbarrow. That was one of the first jokes that I wrote that Howard used. Get the head on the
That's a
computer.
good one.
Yeah, thanks. And then so I started, and because I was doing stand up, I had to start to write jokes more and more. And I was a visual guy from NYU. I was making so when I got to the Tonight Show, I started getting a lot of stuff on. Even before I was a staff writer, I was promised I would be a staff writer in the beginning, and that never happened because then I became the announcer, and the head writer said, you got to be here, and we need people to go on the road, whatever the case may be. But then when we went to the Jay Leno Show, I became a staff writer, and I continued until the Tonight Show ended.
And how many people did you have in those writing rooms?
Well, see, again, that there was 20. There was 20
writers.
but see, only occasionally would we actually all be in the writers' room.
Yeah.
For the most part, it was we would write stuff on our computers and then just go and submit it, just put it on Jay's desk, and then we would find out from the head writer if it's in or not.
So it was Jay and the head writer.
They would like Jay would dog it. They would call it. So Jay would put a J next to it
If he liked it.
and then that would go to the head writer. If the head writer liked it, then suddenly you would get it on.
Did you keep score? Well,
I'm
sure if there's 20 of you.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
That's what's the scary thing.
Yeah, I mean, did you feel like you had a pretty good batting percentage?
Yeah, well, yeah, especially in the beginning because in the beginning I was just a bit writer pretty much. Because there's monologue writers, there's bit writers, and there's drop-in writers. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to bore everybody by being too inside.
No, it's interesting though.
But so I was a bit writer, so I'd be submitting everything. Like full segments. I got quite a few in where the whole segment was mine.
Oh wow, okay.
Like celebrity and their pets, and like would be like how they look like whatever, like their pets, and like all different kind of things. And then jaywalks, we get a lot of jaywalks in. Like
Yeah,
different kind of
jaywalks, yeah.
And then I started submitting monologue. I would get the monologue. Then I started submitting these things called drop-ins. And drop-ins are video jokes. So so where Jay would go to cut to a news story, and if you ever saw any of the drop-ins, it would be like a news story, and there'd be a punchline at the end.
Yes.
And so I would start submitting them. So then the head drop-in guy comes to me and said, John, you're getting a lot of these drop-ins in. Why don't you just pitch them like yourself? Because the drop-ins guys had a meeting every morning, 2 of them then. Mm-hmm. So then I started pitching drop-ins and getting them in, and now I became part of the drop-in crew.
Yeah.
And that sucked. And it was great because I have a great reel. A lot of great...
I was going to say, you got a lot of FaceTime.
Yeah, and all the video, and Jay would put me, saw you doing a great job, and Jack the head writer put me, saw you doing a great job. But what sucked was we had... Research would compile like 100 clips of like Jersey Shore, the Kardashians, and news stories, and us three would go home at after a long day at 6 and watch 2 to 3 hours worth of clips.
So someone was giving you a reel of
just news stories.
Whether it was reality shows,
bad clips, and we had to find jokes in that and make visual jokes out of them. So and what was
that's like good stand-up practice.
Yes, but the thing was that we had to also, because it became such a competitive thing, and you really wanted it to for your idea to work and let Jay be able to see the idea. We would edit all these things on our own.
Okay.
And we would do our own pseudo effects.
That's a lot of work, man.
Yeah. So we would be so essentially the job was like from 9 to 10 at night every day.
Yeah, so like taking a current example, like Ebola, the old Ebola craze, or the scaffolding at the Freedom Tower that almost fell the other day.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all things that you would just look at.
Yeah, like if you saw the scaffolding fall, and then you would say, well, I wonder how that happened, and then you say, well, hey, let's see the video, and then you just you'll see Jay, and like in the window, and then he opens the window, and then happens to knock the thing out, and then we think of something that would be like a joke to it.
Because I mean, I can't imagine how competitive. Again, taking that same example, how competitive that environment was, where you have, that was a big story, national news, a fine outcome, but you have 20 different guys writing 20 different bits that they want included in a monologue. Would you just torture yourself? Like,
oh yeah,
I gotta find something better.
Like all the monologue guys. I mean, listen.
Were you on that? Could you submit to monologue?
Oh yeah, I got quite a few of those jokes in that way, and that was always cool too. To have to get a monologue joke because they had 10 guys doing like the monologue, and those guys are seasoned professionals. Like just boom. I mean, there's one guy, John Maxon. He writes for all the award shows. The guy's like a genius.
Like Bruce Valanche.
Yeah, he's just like that. Yeah. But he would write. Only he's straight. He would write like 80 to 100 jokes a day, and he would say to me, he goes, John, I'll write 100 a day. I'll be lucky to get 5 in. I mean, so that's what you're dealing with. I mean, it's not.
It's like an actor auditioning for a part. I mean, you'll maybe throw out 50 auditions to get one callback.
Yeah,
it's so competitive.
Oh yeah, and they're all talented people. I mean, everybody's there and for a reason.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's and they kept score, which was always like so like if you have like a bad week, you start to get a little nervous.
Did you feel like you had better job security with Howard than you did with Jay? Because you're under contract either way, right?
That's a good question. I guess I would feel better with Howard job security wise because well, then again, I say that, and then Howard fired me a couple times on the air.
But you didn't get fired.
No. Yeah. I would say I had better probably job security with Howard. Well, especially because Conan comes in. Dude, I get there 2 months in, and I move the whole family. We drive cross country, and they have a meeting in the conference room, and they announce Jay's leaving in 5 years.
Right.
I'm like, I haven't unpacked yet.
Well, okay, here's another question. Knowing what you knew 2 months later, would you have still left?
Yeah.
Because of just the opportunity and the funds?
There's a myriad of reasons. And the first is, I wanted to be in film and television. It was my goal. It was my dream. I mean, to be a writer for Jay Leno, which I said that was kind of promised me, but I had right in the beginning, and to work on TV and be on camera and be one of the announcers of the most famous franchise in television history. That was that meant a lot to me. Plus, I was on the Stern Show for 15 years, and I was in the mood for a change anyway. Second, the money was a hell of a lot better.
Sure.
I mean, my middle daughter, I didn't get to see a lot because I was working every weekend doing stand up, so I could supplement my income because I left the Stern Show. On the radio side, I was making $85,000 a year, and to live in Manhattan with 2 kids. I mean, that's not. So I had to. So I was on the road all the time. So Lily was like, she didn't like me the first couple of years because I was a stranger. And then third, I'm gonna be honest. It would bother me a lot of time. I told you when I would hear
belittling
when I would hear what a loser I am, and no talent and all that stuff. When he would go off on me, I didn't.
It's over it.
Yeah, it didn't make me feel too well.
Yeah.
So, there were times I go home like awful. I have a song on my second album that called I Don't Know, which is just all about I came home miserable after a lashing on the air and just kind of penned that song and I recorded it with Scott the engineer in the studio.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, so you had no regrets. You never had any regrets about making the move and coming out here.
No, and when I say about the berating, I'm not mad at Howard about it because it's part of the show.
Yeah.
And I had every opportunity to leave whenever I wanted. So I took it. So I'm not blaming him.
Yeah.
And I say that because I'm always getting myself in trouble. I'm not blaming him. It hurt, and I'm not going to lie and say it didn't because it did. I'm sure it hurt some of the other guys on the show too. It was there. Gary and I say when we were in the back that where is the wheel going to spin today? Because it could be Gary too, where Howard would rail at Gary.
Yeah.
I'm sure Gary would feel too good about it.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's what you knew what you were getting going into that show. You knew what you were getting listening to it, and I think that that was part of what I think people drew them to that show was that
it was a soap opera.
Yeah, everybody wanted to bust balls, but Howard could do it well. So it's like to listen to that, you're kind of living.
But not only can he do it well, he's your boss.
Right.
I mean,
so it's kind of a mindfuck a little bit.
Howard once told me on the air that I should abort my first kid because I'm not fit to be a dad. Okay, now you're laughing. I'm going to beat you up laughing. But no, and then he told my wife who was pregnant at his birthday show the same thing. You should abort it. John's not fit to be a dad. Whatever. Okay.
Jesus.
Now you say, okay, well that was on their shtick. It might have been, but it's still. On a normal playing field, I would have got up and freaking punched anybody in the face who would have said that.
But did he ever? I mean, and here's what I was kind of getting at earlier. When we were talking about outside the show. Would he ever throw his arm around you after the show and say, "Hey, good sport today, man"? Like, what I mean? He would be very nice off the air. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, he was doing it for the shock.
He never said, "John, I'm only kidding. You'd be a great dad."
No, not on the air. But I mean, that's what a shock jock does. Is he doesn't pull back on the air.
No,
and go,
that's the nature of the show. But I am just saying those are the kind of days where
you get down.
Yeah, where you get down because you really can't go, well, F you, and you say that again, I'll freaking, whatever, because he's your boss too.
Yeah.
So you're kind of a rock in a hard place.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that knowing that he could get your goat, and that's what egged him on probably a lot of times too.
Probably. But that's the truth. He's great at ball breaking.
Yeah. And it's shock value, which is.
And he knows. Listen, he's the best at what he does.
Yeah. I want to switch gears. I try my best when I do these interviews with different artists and people in the industry to not do a lot of research. But I came across an article that I missed a while back about your daughter. That is a remarkable story. She came out as a lesbian in high school. And
she came out in 9th grade.
To you and your.
She came out in 9th grade and she was bullied all throughout high school. In fact, the principal told me to stop. And joke. It's a joke.
Wait, go back. When did she come out
to
you?
No, she came out because I was divorced. I think at the time I was separated already. She came out to her mom. And I should know because when she was 5, I bought her a pink bike and she wouldn't ride it.
Yeah. Did you have?
Now my son's riding it, so I'm a little worried. But anyway, just kidding. No, but she came out in 9th grade and
to everybody.
Yeah,
the world.
But then, she lost all her friends. She was an outcast. And like I told you, this is Calabasas High. This is a place that was used to be known as Cal Blacklist because there was a blacks there.
Right.
And then like I told you, then the Wayans family came and moved in, and that was 50-50. But no, but it's a really conservative school. So then this is to her credit. She set up an anti-bullying campaign. She became vice president of the Gay Straight Alliance. She interned at the Teen Suicide Hotline.
And I want to go back to...
And then she set up a program called Friends for Transfers and Lonely Kids. And the reason why I say this is because then in 12th grade, when she was announced as, when they were announcing all the homecoming nominees, I walked her out. She was the last one to be walked out. The whole bleachers, because it was at a football game in halftime, the place went nuts. So there's a girl who was bullied in 9th grade and turned that school around. Everybody loved her in 12th grade. And I was so proud.
Yeah, what an amazing story. Well, a couple of questions. One, how did you react, or how did she approach you to say, "Hey, Dad, I'm batting for the same team"?
Knew. I think my ex told me, or it wasn't. I don't know. I think I heard from my ex first, and then. But see, I don't. You understand? I'm a liberal. I'm as liberal as day long.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was never like, oh my god.
I mean, I paint. I've been painting for a while, which which Howard does now, which is so funny. But I do all conceptual painting. So I had one called Prop Hate. It was called. That was way before I knew about Greta. So I was like, I've been for equal, equality this whole time.
So you never batted an eye at it.
I didn't know. No. In fact, this is a funny story, and this is true. Like I'm driving, and my daughter's, Greta. She's in the passenger seat, and this hot girl is jogging, and he's like,
and you both go.
No, yes. I'm looking over at her. I'm like, oh my god, my daughter's catching me checking out this girl. I look over her. She's checking her out too. So that's kind of funny.
She could be your wingman.
Yeah, exactly. So she's great. I really don't care.
When did she say she knew?
That's a good question.
You said at a young.
I remember she kissed the boy when we first got to Calabasas, so it must have been probably around maybe 7th or 8th grade that she started to know.
And you probably knew. I would imagine that was a bonding experience for you and your daughter, because did you experience a lot of bullying from stuttering growing up?
Oh hell yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, I got bullied for stuttering. I got bullied for being Puerto Rican. I mean, kids used to go, oh, do you live in the basement of Taco Bell, which is ridiculous how dumb the kids were because Mexico and Puerto Rico are really far apart.
Yeah.
But and then the whole stuttering thing. I was called Stutterface and Skip and MC Stammer. And,
yeah, I like that one.
And the creme de la creme stuttering prick, which are pretty harsh words to hear from your parents. But no, seriously.
What did you? Well, two things. Then
I was called. I get called the stuttering prick. And you know what the funny thing about the story is? I ended up having dinner with Joe Pesci a couple times.
Okay.
And I said to him, Joe,
stuttering prick.
Yeah, I said, because of you, I got people on Facebook calling me stuttering prick, and then he laughed. He was like, it was very funny.
And that's the line from Goodfellas.
Yeah, and he improv a lot of that stuff. So
yeah,
it was
a great scene.
Yeah.
But you said you've been public. You mentioned it earlier about your dad being abusive, and you feel like this kind of came on because of that. How did that finally subside? That abuse, or did it ever subside?
You know what the weird part about it? See, this is my dad, and he's still alive, and he was the greatest guy, like funny, and take us everywhere, camping, and it was just like out of nowhere. Every once in a while, he would snap and then smack the crap out of everybody. And not like it was usually the girls got it a lot worse. I mean, I only got beat up like 2 or 3 times, but I witnessed my sisters getting a lot, and I was 5 and 6 and 7, and it was just.
Were they older?
Yeah, they're like 8 years older. I'm the accident, total accident. Okay. And it was hard. And my brother only got it once, but it was a girl. It was just so yeah. But, I mean, and that's what I think, because when I went to a stuttering therapy thing, they said usually it's brought on by something traumatic that happens. So.
And was it just like an overnight thing? Was it just like a
because I didn't stutter in kindergarten, and I didn't stutter in first grade. It happened around 6 or 7, when in 2nd grade. So I can only guess it was because what happened was I remember it like it was yesterday.